All right, we're about to dive into one of the most powerful tools in the world of persuasion. It's a really subtle but incredibly effective way to make an offer seem almost impossible to turn down. It's called the "that's not all" technique, and I'd be willing to bet you've fallen for it without even realizing what was happening.
I mean, think about it for a second. Have you ever been on the fence about buying something, and then right at that moment of hesitation, the deal just gets sweeter? That feeling right there is completely by design. And today we're going to break down exactly how it works.
So, to really get a handle on how this works in the real world, let's start with a super simple, totally classic scenario. Let's call it the irresistible offer. Okay, just picture this. You're at a local market, maybe a bake sale, and you see this delicious looking cake. Simple enough, right? You're definitely interested, but maybe you're not 100% sold just yet. The seller tells you the price, €5. And you pause for a second, you're weighing the decision. And in that tiny moment, they lean in and say, and you know what? I'll throw in 2 cookies with that. All of a sudden, that deal feels amazing, right? That small little shift, that's the entire technique in action.
Now, that feeling you get, that wow, what a great deal feeling, it is not just in your head. It's a real, measurable psychological phenomenon. And it was proven in what we'll call the cookie experiment, a classic study that put this whole idea to the test.
Let's hop in the time machine and go back to 1986. A psychologist named Jerry M. Berger decided he wanted to find out if the way an offer is presented could totally change how people respond, even if the final deal is exactly the same. The setup was just brilliant in its simplicity. Berger set up 2 groups. For the first group, the offer was just laid out all at once. You can get this cake and 2 cookies for €5. Simple. But for the second group, he used our technique. He first offered the cake for €5, paused, and then he added the 2 cookies as a bonus. Now remember, this is key. It's the exact same items for the exact same price. The only thing that changed was the delivery. So what happened? Well, the results were just staggering. In the group that got the all-in-one offer, only 40% of people bought it. But in the "that's not all" group, a whopping 73% bought the cake. That is nearly double the sales just from tweaking a few words in the offer. Okay, so we know it works. The numbers don't lie. But why? Why is it so darn effective? To answer that, we have to dig into something called the psychology of concession. It all comes down to this one big idea: a perceived concession. See, when the seller improves the deal right in front of you, it doesn't feel like it was part of the original plan. No, it feels like they're making a special effort, a personal gift, just for you. And that creates this little subconscious nudge, a feeling that you should give something back, in this case, by agreeing to buy. You can almost think of it as a 4-step journey that happens in your brain in just a few seconds. First, the initial offer is made, and that sets a price anchor in your mind. Then comes the surprised extra. Your brain immediately sees that as a personal gift or concession. And finally, that feeling triggers this really powerful subconscious need to reciprocate, which makes you way more likely to say yes. And all of this leads us to the single biggest lesson from this entire field of research. The way you structure your offer can be just as important, sometimes even more important, than what you're actually offering. That's pretty much a golden rule in negotiation. So now that we kind of understand the mechanics behind this, it brings up a pretty important question. When we see this technique out in the wild, where do we draw the line between smart influence and, well, outright manipulation? And trust me, once you start looking, you are going to see this everywhere. It's the classic, "but wait, there's more," from every late-night infomercial ever. It's the free gift with purchase at the retail counter. It's the car dealership that agrees to your price and then says, "You know what, I'll even throw in the floor mats for free." It is a fundamental tool of sales and negotiation. At the end of the day, knowing how the "that's not all" technique works makes you a smarter consumer and a more effective negotiator, no doubt about it. But it also leaves us with this big question to think about. When does a clever presentation cross that line from being a fair tool of influence into a subtle form of manipulation? The line isn't always so clear, and that's definitely something worth thinking about the next time you're offered a deal that suddenly seems too good to be true.